In a second, we're going to have a chat about some polling data that seems to suggest that people prefer the state government approach to the federal government approach when it comes to COVID. But lads, a topic that will instantly disinterest some but is the most important to millions of people around the country, and it is the epidemic, the pandemic, dare I say, of loneliness. Now, a quarter of all people in Victoria live by themselves. Millions of people live by themselves. In the United Kingdom, they have a Minister for Loneliness. Interesting reporting in the Daily Telegraph over the weekend about the number of experts that are saying, hey, loneliness helps feed into all these other issues, including mental illness issues such as anxiety. So, Matt, I'll talk to you first, because the unique conditions of central Queensland, right, where it's nice to be around, you know, rocky, bit of a big town, but then obviously the further out you go, the more away from people you are. But of course there'd be people living in Rocky whose, partner left them, or they died, or there's a reason where they never got married. They live by themselves. Kids now off to Brisbane, off to somewhere else. How do we start to measure this? How do we tackle this? Again, I'm not saying throw more government at it, but this is a really big deal that isn't sexy to talk about, but forgive me for not being sexy.
Well, it is a big deal, and I think it's something that transcends coronavirus or COVID, especially in my areas of regional Queensland. Truth be told, we haven't had the same large impact from COVID. We had a couple of months there of lockdown, but we really didn't get out of the novelty phase. You know, it was all a bit exciting at first, and then we got to open up, and we were being back to normal for most of that time. I know different story down where James is from in Victoria. So we've been very lucky. But this issue of increasing loneliness and separation is one that's permeated through society for the last few decades, I think. I think a lot of it's partly due to the breakdown of traditional institutions like the church, or organised employment. I mean, labour markets are much more flexible now, so people don't quite seem as grounded and rooted in one industry. There's no easy answers to it, and as you say and suggest, I don't think it's necessarily something government can solve. I think it's these institutions that have died away are the little platoons of society that only really communities can build back up again. So I just think as a culture we've got to reinvest in our communities and find ways of connecting with people again. I do think that what I do fear from a government perspective is we don't take enough pride in our own country anymore. We don't perhaps proudly sell that to children, and if you don't take pride in your own community or country, why would you invest in it, and why would you help others if you don't sell that message? So, I said today I was commenting. Someone raised a question with me at an LNP meeting about corporate Australia, and when I think about it, if you go into big businesses these days in Australia, you're probably more likely to find rainbow flags than Australian flags. And I think it's a real shame that we don't have our companies, our institutions investing back in what is so great about this country and selling this message, because we'll make for better communities if we do that.
Yeah, I agree completely. Joel, got a quick one on this for me about just how to tackle this stuff. We all know about their telephone lines, and we all know about the "Are you okay?" But there's a reality here that, life moves very quickly, and slowly but surely there's a reason people get left behind. And when you are by yourself, when you're left behind, that's what triggers the loneliness.
Well, I think the complexity and busyness of our lives is having a double impact. One, it's putting emotional and mental stress on everyone, but it's also, as Matt pointed out, undermining other institutions that we may have gone to in the past for social interaction. The service clubs, Rotaries, Lions clubs of the world are struggling because people are too busy to attend them any longer. And I think there's a problem with this idea that if you're not a rocket scientist these days, you're somehow a failure. Yeah. I think that's a real issue. But here's a perfect model. I don't want government to involve men's sheds. A perfect example of groups doing really good work in our community. I think it's going to be a bottom-up thing. I think community has to people in a community have to be reaching out to one another, but there has to be a framework. Organisations like men's sheds from which to do just that.
Yep, agree completely.